Hello and welcome to this lecture where I'm going to be introducing you to one of the most powerful tools of Salesforce, and that is the report. On your screen, you see a few things. This can look really overwhelming. So what I'm going to do is guide you. The first thing you must know is that there are three main elements to any Salesforce report. The first element is what we see. In other words, the preview section. If we wanted to see people's names, their last names, their account names, their emails, we would find them right here in the preview section. The preview section shows a maximum of 50 records. So, everything we can see is in the preview section. The second section is called the filter section. The filter section essentially limits or helps us narrow down the millions and millions of data points to the data points that we ourselves want to see. So imagine you looking for pizza and you lived in New Delhi, India, or New York City, United States, and you had millions and millions of pizza restaurants here in the preview section. You would use the filter section to actually filter down for your tastes. So you could choose, for example, pepperoni pizza or vegetarian pizza and put pizza type equal to pepperoni pizza, vegetarian pizza, and only the pepperoni and vegetarian pizzas would come up here in the preview section. So the preview shows you everything. The filter limits. So there's a relationship between the filter and the preview. The filter limits what is shown in the preview section. The third piece is actually what we call the fields. And I've opened up a contact record here because we are in a contacts and accounts report type, which I'll talk about in a moment. And so what you will notice is that a field is like a bucket of information. Any field holds information, right? And so if we want to find out this specific piece of information, we would go to our field section and type, for example, contact owner. Notice right here it says contact owner equals Paslaleti. I could drag over Paslaleti and drop it, or I could drag it out. But let me drag it in, and what do you think we're going to see when we drag it in? That's right, we're going to see that Paslaleti is actually the contact owner over here. Paslaleti is the contact owner because Paslaleti is the contact owner of this particular record. So we have multiple contact owners, which means that the person, Pasla, doesn't own this person, they own the person's record. Okay. Now, to demonstrate what I'm talking about when it comes to the filters and the preview section, what I'm going to do is we're actually going to find Mr. Matthew Abrams in this section right here, right? So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you the relationship between the preview section and the filter section, right? The filter section up here and the preview section up here. So what I'm going to do is we're going to find Mr. Matthew Abrams. So I know that his last name is Abrams. So what I'm going to do is say last name, and I see that there's a last name. I drag that in and I drop it. And I have multiple options here. I can say last name equals to, not equals to, less than, greater than, less or equal, greater or equal, contains, does not contain, or starts with. I'm going to say equal to, and I'm going to type in Adams. And now that I've typed in Abrams, what do you think is going to happen when I click OK? So what's going to happen is, as soon as I click OK, anyone with the last name Abrams should appear, right? Well, what we've got to look at is the relationship not only between the filter and the preview, but the relationship between the filters themselves. So let's look at our filters together. What we have is all accounts, not just my contacts, my accounts, my team's accounts, but we're looking at all accounts. We're looking at last activity, modified date. In fact, we've chosen created date, and then we've looked at my current fiscal year. What are the limitations of that? Well, If Mr. Abrams was created 2 fiscal years ago, he won't show up on this report because it's only filtering for the current fiscal year. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that this says all time. Once again, nothing showing. Okay. So what happens if Pashla is the owner of the account, but is not the owner of Mr. Abrams? What would happen? Well, Mr. Abrams would not show up. So let's actually remove the account owner. Now, what we're looking at is lead source not equal to blank. That means that only records with a lead source field that is filled out will appear. Let me say that again. If I say that this was equal to blank, it would mean that any record and only records that had nothing in them would appear. But we want to only see records that have something in them. So we're going to say not equal to blank. We're going to click OK. Well, nothing's showing up. So let's remove lead source. And what do we find happens? We find that Mr. Abrams actually comes up. And let me show you exactly what happens. If we click lead source and we drag it and we drop it into this, notice that it won't let us, right? And so that's because lead source is already in the report that we are looking at. So what we can see is we can see Mr. Abrams, but we can see that there's Larry and Monique. So what we're going to do is take the first name and drag it to the top, equals to, and we want to see Matthew Abrams. So we go up here and we say Matthew. First name equals Matthew. And now we can see Matthew's information. Now, let's say I just wanted to see, we're looking at Matthew's state and Matthew's lead source. Let's say I only wanted to see this in a tabular format. We have different report types. We have table, summary, matrix, and joined report types. I'm going to show you the most simplest one, which is a table report type. And that just shows us exactly the way Excel would show us. When I click Run Report, it's pulling all the information. Salesforce is pulling all the information and showing us this simple filter. We've made life easy for Salesforce because we've only filtered for one piece of information. But watch what happens when I clear these filters. Everyone begins to show up. And there are so many people in this report that what we can do is actually hide the details if we wanted to see the total number, which is 465. And I could click Show Details to take me back. Let's say now I wanted to go back to customize this report. I could click Customize. And then I could click Save or Save As. And that will allow me to save my report and come back tomorrow or come back another time to customize it again. Or alternatively, I can make a new report. The final thing I wanted to talk to you about is that I'm in the type of report that I'm in. We have different reports types. Because I'm talking about people, in other words, contacts and their accounts, I'm in a contacts and accounts report. And we'll dive into more of those in a moment. So let's recap together. Number one, a report is a tool to pull information from Salesforce. Number two, Salesforce has 3 main pieces when it comes to reports. The first piece is what we see, the preview section. The second piece is what we filter by, or the filter section. And the third piece is the field section. A field is a piece of information or a bucket of information that we can drag in and drop or drag out. When we want to filter by something, we can drag and drop. We have different options that we can use, and we can also use the above date fields to help us limit by time. When we click Run Report, Salesforce will pull all the information, but when we click in the preview section, we will only see a maximum of 50 records. Finally, when we want to see just a little bit of information, we can hide the details, or we can click Show Details. And finally, always remember to save your report. I hope you've enjoyed this lecture, and I'll see you in the next one.